Let's talk a little bit about the bee yard feeding. I love to put lemongrass oil and tea tree oil in this time of the year in my sugar water. It helps clear the gut out of the bee, and it just does a lot of good things. And I put that into the sugar water. Now, I'll only put into a gallon, maybe 5 drops of each of those essential oils. The lemongrass, you can smell it when you come into a bee yard. I mean, it really smells good. But if you feed one hive, you got to feed them all. It just can't be one hive. What happens is if you don't, other bees come in and start robbing. And before you know it, that hive that you were trying to rehabilitate is now a casualty. So you got to make sure, feed one, feed them all on that there. Okay, so when we're looking at what can we add into our 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 sugar water, a couple of things that we can look at is trachea mites, and what they do is they get into the throat of the bee, and a parasitic mite control system. A lot of where I've put my stake in the ground here at Mountain Sweet Honey is staying all natural. I don't put chemicals in my bees. Never have, never will. I may mess up here and there, but I've never had to go out and get all these chemicals. And there's plenty of people out there selling chemicals. Put this on your bees regardless of if they have a problem or not. Don't do that. Only do it when you have to. And here's one of the neat things with us is if you see something going on in your hive, get your smartphone out, take a picture, send it to the girls. If they don't know what the diagnosis is, they're going to come to me. And I'll be able to tell real quick what's going on. But those here in the southeast and up into Virginia, you don't have to worry about trachea mites or parasitic mites. Those are mostly up in the northeast and the upper Midwest. I've never had any problems with any of those 2 mites. But essential oils used in wintergreen, spearmint, pennyroyal, tea tree oil, lemongrass. Lemongrass is probably my favorite. We do carry tea tree and lemongrass in the store there. Those are just really, really super for the bees. All right, now, if you want to attract a swarm, use lemongrass oil along with the nastiest, foulest wax that you've scraped off from a hive and put that into the hive trap or the swarm trap, and the bees will come. 10 feet up is typically where the marker is to get swarms. And hopefully we'll be able to talk about that before the end of the class. We talked about dearth feeding. I'm going to skip through that because we have some room to make up here. Let's talk about packages. If you buy a package, undeniably, you have to feed for up to 6 to 8 weeks, 1-to-1 sugar water. It can't be, I went on vacation for 2 weeks, I came back, and why is it that they're not moving up in the hive? It's because they didn't have the wax production to create the comb on the various frames. So they kind of put into reverse, and it will really set your hive back. Nukes, 3 weeks minimum, and depending on how early you get your nukes, you might be feeding up to 6 weeks, depending on where you live. If you're not feeding, then you're going to be looking at very slow comb development, and they may potentially swarm, because once they use up their food sources that came with a nuke, they've got to go elsewhere, and they will find another place.